Now, I is the square root of negative 1. That's not real, it's imaginary. So if we take the number 3 plus 5i, which is a sum of a real number and an imaginary number, and subtract the number 7 minus 2i, another sum of a real and an imaginary number. And these are called complex numbers. So we're subtracting two complex numbers. Well, we can rearrange this so we have 3 minus 7 and 5i plus 2i. And of course we can factor the I out of the 5i plus 2i. We get 5 plus 2i, which is 7i. And of course 3 minus 7 is negative 4. So the sum is very easy to calculate. The i's just remain i's. There are no real factors. Well, I is an imaginary number, and there are no imaginary factors of your real numbers. So everything stays separate and everything works out quite nicely. Now if we multiply two complex numbers, and I'll just choose the same two numbers I used before for no particular reason. 3 plus 5i times 7 minus 2i, two complex numbers. Okay. Well, we multiply these in the same way we do anything else. We use a distributive law. We're going to have 3 times 7 minus 2i plus 5i multiplied by 7 minus 2i. What's that give us? Well, 3 times 7 is 21. 3 times minus 2i is minus 6i. 5i times 7 is 35i. 5i times negative 2i is negative 10i squared. Well, we've got real number, 21. We've got two imaginary numbers, 6i and 35i, negative 6i and 35i. And we've got this negative 10i squared. And what in the world is negative 10i squared? Well, negative 10i squared is negative 10 times the square of I. I is the square root of negative 1, so I squared is the square of the square root of negative 1, and that's negative 1. So, where I've got the negative 10i squared here, I'm going to substitute negative 1. Of course, I think I already said it, but I add my negative 6i and 35i to get 29i. So I have this expression, but I squared is negative 1, so the only step between here and here is to replace I squared with negative 1. And then I have negative 10 times negative 1, which is plus 10. I still have my 21 and my 29i, giving me 21 and 10 is 31, 29i is just plain old 29i. Now there's a whole lot more that can be done with complex numbers, and I don't think a lot of it gets done in this course, but we want to have this picture, and I believe this is something that you see in Algebra 2, and it's not a particularly difficult idea once you get used to it, and all you really have to understand is that I squared is negative 1 because I is the square root of negative 1. Everything else follows from that and from just regular standard rules of algebra that you're quite used to.